everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about Transformers, released in 2007, directed by Michael Bay, written by Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, from a story by John Rogers and Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman, and of course based off of Hasbro's Transformers action figures, and starring Shia LaBeouf, Megan Fox, Josh Duhamel, Tyrese Gibson, Anthony Anderson, Rachel Taylor, John Turturro, and Jon Voight. This was a very anticipated movie for yours truly. I think just based off even the first trailer, I was pretty stoked about it. I have a great story, but I want to hear. Did you see this in the theater, Stu?
I did see this in the theater. Me and my family were on vacation. My mom and my grandmother. We were in Orlando, Florida, when the movie came out.
Nice.
And I told them flat out, I was 17 at the time. I was like, listen, I'm going to see this movie. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to see this movie. Drop me off. Leave me alone for the next 3 hours. I'm watching Transformers. I've been waiting my entire life to see this movie. Right. Nothing will stop me from seeing this movie. So I was very, very excited to see this movie, especially because the movie had been like rumored for like 5 years before that.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that. Yeah.
And when it finally entered production, I was like, it's actually happening. So yeah, I was very excited to see it. Especially like the marketing for these movies throughout the entire series. You can say what you want about the movies themselves, but the marketing for these movies is great, especially the first one with the Mars rover
that's the teaser. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite teasers ever. Like, because it really sets up what kind of movie it's going to be. It's like, oh man, like alien invasion movies. Like, It was like, so Michael Bay was like, you know what? I'm gonna take Independence Day and switch out the aliens for Transformers. I was like, that's brilliant.
That is actually a good way of putting it. That's
but
fun.
I was very excited to see this movie, and I was quite pleased when I first saw it. I still like this movie a lot. My critical eye of it, I look at it a little bit differently now. I see why certain people are not quite fond of it, because it's really not a Transformers movie, as far as like being true to the lore and just like the way the Transformers act. But it's still, it's still a fun ride for me. So
yeah. No, I'm in the same boat with you. We'll get into the more, how my feelings of it now versus then. But I'll tell you how I felt about it then. When this movie came out, I thought it was like the greatest movie I'd ever seen. I mean, it wasn't like, I knew it wasn't going to win any Oscars or anything, but I thought it was such a fun time at the movie theater.
Absolutely.
That I think I went and saw it 2 or 3 more times. I saw it 3 or 4 times in the theater. And I think I've told you this story before, Stu, but I was full time working at the Weather Channel at this point when it came out. And there was a guy that worked at the Weather Channel who he was a director, and he was a big movie fan, but he was kind of more, I guess you could say, more on the pretentious side of a movie fan. Like, he had like a master's in film studies, and, he really,
he's a film connoisseur.
Yeah. He was more of, I think I remember talking to him about Transformers before. Maybe it was right after that teaser trailer came out, and he was talking about, he's like, Michael Bay's directing it though. He's like, how can it be good type of thing. I definitely think he would agree with like Scorsese and the whole Marvel is not cinema. It's, a theme park type thing. That's kind of the camp he falls into. He's like Criterion Collection film watcher versus, whatever. So anyway, Transformers comes out. I'm like 23. This guy's in his mid 30s, I think, at this point. And I'm like, Transformers is awesome. I was like, it's so good. And he goes, really? It's good? And I was like, oh man. I was like, I loved it. Blah, 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 blah. So I guess he took it on my recommendation. So he went and saw the movie. Mm-hmm. And there was one day where I was sitting in the audio booth, like by myself, just kind of killing time in between shows or something. And he comes into the control room and he just kind of storms into the audio booth, just opens the door. Yeah, basically. He just opens the door, looks at me and goes, Transformers was awful. And then like closes the door and leaves. And I was like, all right, I guess it's not for everybody. And so, yeah, he hated it. And now as I've gotten older, I don't think the movie holds up quite as much. I still think it's really fun. Mm-hmm. But a lot, some of the comedy doesn't work for me as much anymore. It's kind of like how we were talking about in the Kick-Ass episode,
Yeah.
It doesn't, I don't know, just when I was younger, I thought it was hilarious, Yeah. But now it's like, I'm like, okay, all right. And some of the scenes, it's kind of funny watching it, like you said, with a critical eye. One of the very first note I wrote was some of the stuff is just kind of like, as if I was a producer on the film, I'd have been like, why? And one of those instances is in the beginning of the movie when Sam and his dad are going to buy a car. They go to that used car dealership, which is run by Bernie Mac. And it's like, there's like an ostrich and there's like a petting zoo. And I'm like, why spend the money on that? It's like one shot. It takes like half a second. And it's just this shot of an ostrich to show that it's like a weird used car lot type of thing. I don't know.
It's to show what the kind of entrepreneur that Bobby Bolivia is, who's played by Bernie Mac. It's to show that he'll do whatever to make money. Right. So he's got a petting zoo and he's got. Yeah. And I get it. But, Bernie Mac is in the movie for like 3 minutes. Right. So we didn't need character development for such a small character.
Right. And he's so good as is. It's like you don't need those little extra things. You know what I mean? He sells it on his own, with the performance. Mm-hmm. So it's just stuff like that. I like, as a producer, I've been like, really? Do we really need this ostrich for this shot? Which I don't even know. I don't even know if you see it in any of like the shots. Oh, I guess you do in that shot with when you see Bumblebee pull up, but it's none of the actors are in that shot. So I'm like, was this all like second department things? And like, maybe it wasn't even a Michael Bay decision, or maybe Michael Bay told him I want an ostrich in this shot or something. I don't know. It's just bizarre stuff like that. And there's a couple other times things like the credit card. And I realize that's comedy. But when Josh Duhamel's trying to get in touch with like the general or whatever to order the airstrike, mm-hmm. and he's like, no, I don't have a credit card. And it cuts to the other actor and he's like, sir, the attitude will not. I was like, I get it. It's funny, but
but it's unnecessary.
It's so unnecessary. And you had to pay that actor to come in and do those lines. It's just like that stuff could have been cut out. But Michael Bay is going to do what Michael Bay does. And so anyway, I still really like the movie. I can understand the complaints about it in terms of Transformers lore and whatnot. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm such a casual Transformers fan. I played with the toys. I watched mm-hmm. the cartoon show when I was a kid, but like I remembered virtually nothing from the cartoon show when I went to see this movie. Mm-hmm. All I remembered was Optimus Prime, and I remembered Bumblebee was a yellow VW bug. And that was pretty much it. I don't think I could name any other characters or anything.
Yeah,
except maybe Starscream.
I'm definitely a huge Transformers fan. So from a fan standpoint, I could see this movie really frustrating some people.
Sure.
I don't know. This is the definition of a turn your brain off movie and just have fun.
Yes, exactly.
It's a classic alien invasion story. Just the only difference is that, some aliens are good, some aliens are bad. And the aliens aren't actually aliens, they're robots or alien robots. But I know, like I said, I get why people would be frustrated. A lot of people didn't like the look of the Transformers. I didn't mind it. I thought it looked fine for the movie. It was realistic. Mm-hmm. I actually prefer this look over some of the later movies when they start to change their look and get a little more stylized. I actually prefer this look.
Agreed.
But I think Bumblebee has the best look of the Transformers thus far. But we'll get to that when we get to Bumblebee. But yeah, I really, really like this movie.
Yeah.
Going back to what I said about it being kind of like Independence Day, like it has a big cast, and it's kind of told like that Roland Emmerich style story where you got different people in different parts of the world and their different stories, and they kind of all come together at a certain point in the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I loved. I thought that worked very well for this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, one of the things I loved about Independence Day too. And I don't know how I never made that connection before, but you're absolutely right. Like that was a good way of putting it. It's like these separate groups who are all kind of working on the same problem without realizing it, or at least experiencing the same thing without kind of realizing it, and then they all come together in the end, which really does work really well, especially in this movie. With one of my favorite lines in the movie is when I think it's Rachel Taylor, the hacker, asks Shia LaBeouf, she's like, so how'd you get here? And he's like, bought a car, turned out to be an alien robot. He's like, who knew? And I love, one of the things I love about this movie, and I know this might be kind of a weird statement because it could probably cover a ton of movies, but there's something about this one in particular. I love movies about like just ordinary people being put into extraordinary situations and having to kind of really push themselves. Yeah. And that's what I love about Sam in this movie. He's very much an ordinary teenager. He's just, he just wants to buy a new car, and he's trying to hit on the hot girl in the class, and and then all of a sudden now his car is a robot, and he's being taken to Hoover Dam and by Sector 7 and being shown, Megatron and all this stuff. And he's got to protect the Allspark. And it's just like, I'm just a kid, that's, I kind of like those types of stories. I do also obviously love stories about extraordinary people and in extraordinary situations, but yeah, it's something about just everyday people kind of, the idea that, granted, this couldn't have happened to anybody because he's a Witwicky and his great grandfather was Archibald Witwicky, who with the glasses and everything. But the idea that, this could have happened to anybody, anybody could be Sam Witwicky type of thing, I think is kind of cool. Right.
I agree. It's very it's Spielbergian.
Yes. Yeah.
He was a producer on this movie, was really trying to get this movie off the ground for like years.
Yeah, it was.
And so you can definitely see his influence throughout the movie. But I do think, he gave Michael Bay permission to pretty much do whatever he wanted. Yeah. And that's what he did. And I'm glad that he did. Like I do think that a better Transformer movie could have been made, but the idea is to just have fun. At the end of the day, we just want to see robots changing into cars and vice
fighting
versa.
Each other.
and fighting each other. And mission accomplished.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. I wanted to see Optimus Prime, transform from a truck to a robot. I wanted to see, and with Michael Bay, you knew things were going to be big and the shots were going to look pretty and things like that. And so it checked every box for me when I walked out of, when I walked out of the theater. I was like, I saw exactly what I wanted to see. I still love like the third act of the movie when, the Decepticons finally kind of show up like that.
When Megatron wakes up, that's when the movie like kicks into high gear.
The highway. I forget what the name of the Decepticon is. You probably remember the one that's kind of like, it's like a truck with like that claw arm thing.
Bone Crusher. I
love that scene with Bone Crusher and Optimus on the highway.
Yeah.
It still gets me excited. It just looks so good.
Yeah, it does. I love the idea of making certain Transformers like not just like traditional robots. Like Bone Crusher, he was essentially skating on the highway. I thought that was awesome. And in later movies, you got one that is like he has like two wheels that turn over each other. And I love that they thought outside the box when it came to actually transforming these beings. And I thought it was brilliant.
And actually, one of the things, and I know it differs from the cartoon, but is like the explanation for why they look like certain vehicles. You know, I like that they don't just like Optimus Prime doesn't just come to Earth already looking like a semi truck, which is kind of how he was in the cartoon. I think even on Cybertron, he's a truck, you know, and stuff like that.
Cybertronian truck.
Right. And so I like that they come to Earth looking different, and then they scan the vehicles, and that's how they're able to transform into, you know, those vehicles. I think that was a really cool idea. I don't know if that was done before this movie or not, but I liked it a lot in this movie.
Yes, that was.
Well, in Beast Wars they did it, right?
Yes, in Beast Wars
they scan the animals on the planet. That's right.
But yeah, that was a thing. That's like you said, that's how they look like trucks on this planet. But even on Cybertron, they were trucks. They just didn't look like trucks on Earth or jets or vehicles on Earth.
Well, that was another, like, I think in the cartoon, Megatron is a gun, I remember in the cartoon. Yeah. And so I really liked in this movie that he's like an alien spaceship. He's like an alien jet, essentially, in this movie.
He changes in every movie.
Does he really?
His vehicle form is different in every movie.
I actually can't remember how he comes back in the second one. So, because I haven't seen the second one in forever.
They wake him up.
So the Allspark being put into his chest just basically puts him to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, see that's one thing that I like about each of these movies is that they're self-contained and don't set up a sequel.
That's true, I guess.
Yeah. They all have their definitive end, and they, for the most part, when you get into the like Age of Extinction and Last Night, that's where they kind of get convoluted. But the first three are their own stories and don't conflict with one another, and I love that. I think that's how most sequels should be, unless you set out to tell a specific particular story.
Right.
But yeah, he dies at the end of this one, and quotes, then they revive him at the beginning of the first one,
Revenge of the Fallen.
Yeah, or the second one.
Yeah, I have seen this movie numerous times. I saw Revenge of the Fallen a couple of times in theaters because that one had Michael Bay kind of took a note from Christopher Nolan, and he shot some of those scenes with IMAX film cameras. And so I drove out to the Mall of Georgia to see that one a couple times in IMAX just because I loved seeing IMAX footage.
Yeah.
I've only seen Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, and The Last Night, and Bumblebee once each. So I need to.
I'm very excited for you to watch Dark of the Moon again. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah. Well, watching this one kind of made me want to watch them all again, even though I know we'll eventually talk about them. But I don't know if I have the time to watch all of them anytime soon, especially Age of Extinction being so long. But
yeah, that's a pretty long one. Dark of the Moon is like, when it comes to spectacle, it's Michael Bay at his best. Yeah. Like he was all the way in his bag.
Well, I remember loving Dark of the Moon when I saw it in theaters. So I'm hopeful because I think you've told me you think I'll still like it, but I have been nervous to revisit it because I'm worried I won't like it as much. But
yeah,
but I think it'll probably be like this film. I'll probably have maybe problems with it that I didn't have the first time around, but we'll still probably very much enjoy it.
I'm mostly interested to see what you have to say about Revenge of the Fallen.
Well, yeah. Well, I didn't love Revenge of the Fallen when I saw it the first time. That movie has some problems.
Yeah. Agreed.
But there's a couple. I remember like the forest fight scene with Optimus Prime was pretty cool in Revenge of the Fallen. But yeah, I did not like it as much as this first movie.
Yeah. This first one is is really good, and it's I honestly think it's better than what people give it credit for.
I do too.
I love the fact that they make us earn the Autobots.
Mm-hmm. Optimus doesn't show up until an hour into the movie.
Yeah. We're almost halfway, or even a little bit more than halfway. I don't know, halfway through the movie by the time the Autobots show up, and I love how it starts off with the Decepticons trying to wake up Megatron, or they're trying to steal the info to see where he's located, because they don't know where he is at first. So they're trying to find him and then trying to wake him up. And I love that. And then when we finally see Optimus and
Ironhide and Ratchet,
Ratchet, it's just, oh man, it was such a wonderful scene. Backing up though, when the opening monologue of Peter Cullen, when I saw it in the theater, my whole theater erupted.
Oh, really? Wow.
Thunderous applause before time began. Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, people were just. Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, a lot of excited Transformers fans in that.
Yes. So this was honestly one of my favorite, most memorable theater experiences.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That can also really just, it can leave you, it can elevate a movie. When a theater going experience is that good, you can walk out of a movie that's maybe not, like this. You can walk out of a movie like this thinking that was amazing. And so it really does help when everybody's on kind of the same page and enjoying the movie.
Yeah. And that's kind of part of the reason why I didn't think that this movie was quote unquote bad, because everybody that I saw it with loved it.
Yeah. If I had been in that theater, I'd probably been cheering along with everybody else.
Right. And when I started working at the movie theater that following year, so Revenge of the Fallen came out in 2009, and my boss and one of his colleagues were talking about the first movie, and he was like, that movie is not really that good. I'm like, y'all bugging, man. Like, that movie is great.
I just looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score. This movie has a 58%, which is actually a little bit higher than I was expecting.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
But the audience score is an 85%. So I think audiences generally like this movie. Critics thought it was okay. I guess they just thought it was, Michael Bay. It's funny because Michael Bay over the years has gotten a bad rap, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he has.
And I don't, other than these movies, I was trying to think of because before this first Transformers movie came out, maybe aside from Pearl Harbor, I was like, I loved every Michael Bay movie, I
have yet to see a Michael Bay movie that I hate or don't like.
Yeah, that's,
all of them I feel positive about. I think the one that you're probably gonna crucify me for this, but the one that I don't really enjoy as much as the others is The Rock. And I think that was because it was so hyped up for me. And then when I finally saw it, I'm like,
late. Yeah,
I'm like, this is it.
Right. Yeah. I didn't see The Rock in the theater, but I did see it without any kind of, I'd heard it was good, I guess, but nobody was like, you gotta see The Rock. It wasn't like that. I think I rented it when I was working at Blockbuster and watched it with my brother or something and just thought it was so much fun. Although I take it back. Maybe I had really been wanting to see The Rock because I remember seeing trailers for it when it came out. Because I remember the whole Sean Connery, my brother and I used to kind of quote Sean Connery from that movie without even having seen the movie, I think.
Yeah.
So when we finally got to see it, I think I loved it. And I still love The Rock. I was going to say, there's no Michael Bay movie necessarily that I hate, but I did walk out of Age of Extinction and The Last Night just being like,
okay, yeah,
didn't care for those.
Yeah, okay, I take that back. The Last Night, I don't like that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't like that movie.
Right.
But other than that, I still like Age of Extinction. I just think it's too long.
Yeah.
I like Bad Boys 1 and Bad Boys 2.
Yep.
Pain and Gain is probably his funniest movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah, I did.
Armageddon. I like Armageddon.
Yeah, Armageddon.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Armageddon in a while.
I
We
haven't
gotta
either.
add that to the list.
We should actually. Okay, I'll do it right now.
But yeah, I don't understand why he gets such a bad reputation for doing what studios hired him to do, and that's to make
Movies that make money.
Yeah.
Right, blockbusters.
Like his movies make $1 billion. Like he's doing something right.
No, I agree. And I mean, you can watch this movie and I think we can all agree that this movie is more style over substance.
Yes, absolutely.
But that is what Michael Bay gets paid to do. It's like,
yes,
he I mean, if you go into a Michael Bay movie knowing, okay, I'm just going to kind of turn my brain off, enjoy the visuals and have fun, then I think you'll enjoy pretty much maybe not. Like I said, Pearl Harbor was his kind of attempt to do a Titanic-esque serious drama, but with spectacle. And it didn't quite work. And so that one is maybe not so much of a turn your brain off movie, but all the other movies that he's made, you can pretty much just turn your brain off and enjoy them.
Yeah.
And this one I think falls into that category very well. It's like you said, it's a popcorn flick. And if you accept it for what it is, you will have fun.
Yeah, for sure. What did you think about the look of the Transformers?
So when Optimus Prime, I think there was like an image of Optimus Prime in the truck form that got released first. And I hated it. I didn't know why they decided to change, because Optimus Prime has always been one of those flat nose trucks. I don't know how you call those trucks exactly. And they changed it into the big kind of longer semi truck thing. And the flames, I didn't like the flames. I thought the flames, I imagine Michael Bay being like, flames are cool. And I just didn't, I didn't like it. But in the movie, I think it works, actually. I think I don't mind the look of the Transformers at all in the movie. And I don't mind the look of them as the robots. I think, they're not as boxy as the cartoons, but I think it makes more sense in the movie to not be that way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Optimus, Bumblebee, Starscream. I think the look of them all is really, really good. And I like that they, I like that they at least showed a yellow VW bug at Bernie Mac's used car lot. But, I don't mind that they changed him to a Camaro, and then of course they updated him to at the time was the new Camaro. It hadn't even come out yet, I don't think.
No, I think this movie came out in 2007. I think that was like a 2009 or 2010 Camaro.
Yeah, it was like, I remember it being a big deal. Like, it was in the movie before it even got like released publicly. And it was at the time, dude, I wanted that car. I admit, bro, when this movie came out, everybody had a Camaro. I'm like, y'all gonna drive these Camaros into the ground. Yeah. I'm glad I never got one because of that reason. And because insurance would have been insane. But yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if this is how it was. Well, I'm a little bit older than you. When I was going to say, I don't know if this is how it was in Cleveland, but when I was in high school, it was like every person on earth had a Ford Mustang. I hated Ford Mustangs because I just saw them everywhere.
When I was in high school, before this movie came out, everybody had a Honda Civic. Oh, okay. Everybody had a Honda Civic. I'm like, there are other cars, right? Yeah. I mean, you can get a Chevy Cavalier, like you can get
you're just like listing off cars. You could do this car. Yeah, no, but seeing the new Camaro in this movie, oh man, I wanted that car pretty badly. Did you buy any of the toys when this movie came out?
I did not.
No. I bought. Didn't. So hold on, I meant to have this ready, and so I didn't have to go grab it. But I do have Optimus here.
Nice.
in truck form because I actually ended up buying 2 of these. I think the other one's in my attic. Because it was actually so complicated to transform him from the robot to the truck that I was like, well, I'm never doing that again. And so I just bought another one to leave as Optimus in the robot form. But I had this is the biggest one I had. And it used to, the batteries must have died, but you push this button and it used to do like a horn honking or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought this, I thought this one was pretty cool. And then I think I had a couple of smaller ones. I think I bought Barricade as like a smaller version. And I think I always wanted to get Megatron, but I never did.
I wasn't really collecting figures. At that time. I want to start doing it now. I don't have the room.
Well, that's why I stopped. I used to be real big into buying figures. I mean, I've got, you can't see it on camera here, but I got these shelves up near my ceiling, and there's just action figures all over them. And I like displaying them like that. They get dusty, but I have no room. So like I just at some point I was like, I could buy that. It's cool, but where would I put it? What I want to
do is start collecting the McFarlane DC figures.
Yeah,
that's what I want to start collecting. Yeah, but I got to move first.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why that other Optimus, because I never took that other Optimus out of the box, but that's why that other one is in my attic, because I have no place to put it anywhere. I don't know if I'll ever have a house big enough to display everything that I would like to display and to put up the amount of movie posters that I have on. I don't know if I'll ever have wall space big enough. So I got to win that $1 billion lottery, I guess, or something. Get a mansion.
Yeah, that would be nice.
What do you think about Shia LaBeouf as Sam Witwicky?
I very much like Shia LaBeouf as Sam Witwicky. They changed the character from the OG cartoon series. He was Spike in the cartoon series. And this character is a Witwicky, but he's different. He's younger. Has a completely different personality than Spike. But I thought that it worked for this movie. I don't know if you could make the same movie and have a character with that kind of personality, Spike's personality, and it work as effectively as this did. You need somebody with kind of a chaotic demeanor, right?
Which Shia does in this very well.
So yeah, I really liked him.
I don't know if did you ever watch Even Stevens on Disney Channel?
Yeah.
I remember watching Even Stevens. I don't remember if I think I was a little too old to watch it. So maybe my sister was watching it or something, but I remember just being kind of almost mesmerized by Shia LaBeouf on that show. Yeah. I was like, this kid is really good. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself,
he stole the show. It was really supposed to be about him and Ren, and then it just became his show.
About him. Yeah. And I remember watching the show, being like, this kid is going to go far. And so, yeah, I was pleased to see him in this movie, and I thought he did a great job. I do think part of me now wishes they had reined him in a little bit. Like, he gets almost too chaotic in certain scenes, Yeah.
It's crazy because as the movies go on, he gets more chaotic.
Yeah, but I still think Shia LaBeouf is a fantastic actor. I think he kind of suffers from what a lot of like child stars kind of suffer from. They became famous too quickly type of thing, Yeah. And I think that's Shia's. I don't know. This is me just speculating, but I think Shia has kind of suffered from that a little bit. And I also think he realized making these movies that he doesn't really enjoy making big budget movies. He kind of wanted to start doing more things that were more meaningful to him. Yeah. As his career progresses, you see he's made smaller movies. Right. Which is cool, but there's a part of me that kind of wishes he would almost go back to a bigger movie and be a part of a bigger movie again,
Yeah, I would love to see him do a bigger type movie, but something that was like meaningful to him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That he would be able to, give his all in. Because even though he like we said, he's very chaotic in these movies and he does a great job. At the end of the day, I think these movies were just a paycheck for him, especially by the time it got to the third when he was over it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And he had also
I would love
done
to see him return and do something that he genuinely enjoys.
Right. And by the time he'd done the third movie too, he'd also done Indiana Jones. So he had done, a few big movies.
Eagle Eye. I think Eagle Eye had come out,
which I really liked Eagle Eye.
First.
I haven't seen that one in a while, but I remember really enjoying that one too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've always kind of enjoyed Shia LaBeouf. I think he's a good actor. I think he's a really good actor, and fun to watch and whatnot. So yeah, I like him a lot in this movie. Any thoughts on Megan Fox as Michaela?
She's not great, but I've seen worse.
Yeah, that's true. I was just kind of thinking like her character, they tried to give her some character depth with talking about like her juvie record and her dad and stuff like that. But I was like, you could pretty much swap probably anybody out in that role and, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Megan Fox as well.
Yeah, and she was at the beginning of her career. I think as her career progressed, she has gotten better at her craft. Even though her movies have gotten smaller, just like Shia LaBeouf's. Because now what's the movie Jennifer's Body? Like that's become like a cult classic. People love Megan Fox in Jennifer's Body.
I was gonna say I can't even remember the last Megan Fox movie I'd seen, and I think Jennifer's Body was the last one I could think of. But I'm pretty sure she's been in.
She was in one movie last year called Till Death.
Oh, okay.
And I forget the actor that was in that movie. I want to say it was Luke Evans, but it was probably someone else. But I heard that movie was pretty good as well, and people really enjoyed her performance in that. So I think it's just you're at the beginning of your career, you don't really know what you're doing.
Right. Sure.
You have to perfect your craft and learn it. I was listening to Pod Meets World. Was it Pod Meets World? No, it was I Hear Voices with Will Friedle and Christy Carlson Romano. And Will Friedle was saying, I've been acting since I was 10, but I didn't really learn how to act until I was like 20.
Right. Yeah.
But he's like, by that time I had been on Boy Meets World for like 3 years, and it was just learning how to really act.
Right.
But that's because he had such great actors around him. He had Bill Daniels and
who played Alan
William
Matthews.
Russ.
Yeah, William Russ.
But yeah, it's nice to kind of go back and watch these movies and see how far actors have progressed with their craft. But yeah, like I said, I didn't think she was bad or terrible. I think that she also gets a little bit of a bad rep for no reason.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I tell you what is bad about this movie. And I don't think she's bad, but I hated the line even in 2007, and I feel like it was an ADR line, and I don't know why they added it. But Rachel Taylor plays, the hacker, and when she makes the copy to take to Anthony Anderson, she says the line, "There's only one hacker in the world that can crack this code." And I was just like, really? There's only one hacker in the world who can crack this code? And it's Anthony Anderson in his grandmother's house. It just bugged me. I hated it.
That didn't bother me that much.
It's one of those like cringy lines. Like I hate every time I hear it. I'm like, ugh. Watching it this time, I think it was ADR because she's not on screen when she says it.
No.
And so, like I said, I don't know why they added it, but
there's a lot of ADR in Michael Bay movies, especially the Transformers movies.
There's some weird editing too. I noticed, like in the last.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, in the last battle, this is the one scene I noticed. Like Sam and Michaela are standing next to each other, and Sam like kind of runs off. It's right before Michaela decides to run and go grab the tow truck. Sam like runs off camera. And she kind of the camera stays on her and she looks this way. And then it might cut to the tow truck. And then it cuts back and Shia LaBeouf Sam is on like the ground in front of Bumblebee. And I was just like, did you run to take a seat? It was like, it was just kind of strange.
That is a big problem with all of Michael Bay's movies.
Yeah.
The editing is not good.
Yeah. It makes me think it's not necessarily the editors. It's Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Yeah. He likes a fast paced movie.
Right.
Which I get, but there are continuity errors.
Like everywhere.
When you edit too abruptly, and he does that in every single movie. And that is the one thing that bothers me more than anything, is the way his movies are edited.
Yeah. So I can understand that complaint about Michael Bay. Definitely. If you notice stuff like that, which, the first time I was watching the movie, I don't think I ever noticed it. But at this time I did that part, at least, in the couple other scenes that I can't think of at the moment. But there's just a couple of things where I was kind of like, this movie's edited weird. And
it like the thing about it, I think it's more so in like Bad Boys 2 and Pain and Gain, like those movies, the way they're edited, like they don't feel like a fluid story. They feel like a montage. Right.
Which can actually make them feel a little bit longer.
Yeah. Which I think works to an extent, because it gives a movie a certain kind of like casual feel, but in certain scenes it feels off. Like, so like he'll have like a really like serious scene, and then when that scene is done, then the next shot is like a hero shot where the camera is swinging around. Like he did that in Bad Boys 2 after Gabrielle Union's character got kidnapped.
They're standing up and the camera.
He did a hero shot, and then the shot was cool,
right?
But it didn't fit what preceded it.
Right. Yep. Yes, that's it. So there's, again, in the battle scene, there's this kind of chaotic stuff that happens, and then it'll kind of cut to like Michaela or something, and it didn't fit in with the rest of the scene. It was like he loved that shot of her and wanted to include it, but like it didn't really fit with the other stuff. There was also a scene with Josh Duhamel, and I really wish I could remember what he says, but it's when they're in the Hoover Dam, and I really feel like it was shot separately. Like they needed doing, like they felt like he needed to be in the scene or something. And so he's talking, and John Voight and John Turturro, it will cut to them, and he's like, right, we need blah, 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 blah. And then it'll cut back to Josh Duhamel, and it just feels so disconnected. It's really bizarre. And I don't know, usually when they go do like I assume it was a reshoot. It may not have been, but I assume when they do reshoots like that, they try to make it kind of match. And that one just, to me, did not feel like it matched
at all. No.
It felt like two different places, and he wasn't, they weren't really listening to what he was saying. It was weird.
Yeah, it was weird. I think that if Michael Bay edits his movies a little bit more fluidly, they become so much better films, because they're already, he makes fun movies. If you just switch up the editing, that'll change the pace, and I think it'll make a much more fluid experience. Right. Instead of just going here. Like, right.
I think Michael Bay is talented in terms of his like camera work and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's
one of the best, actually, when it comes to his camera work. Yeah, he's one of the best. There's a
special, I don't know if it was probably on the DVD. I don't know if it's on the Blu-ray, but there was a special feature on Bad Boys 2, I believe, where
I know what you're talking about.
Where they showed like it was like the club scene. It was second unit, and the second unit director did like a shot of the club, and they showed that shot, and it was fine. But like Michael Bay was like, we can make this better, and it showed Michael Bay's version, which is what ended up in the movie, and like the camera, it was so much better, and like it looked so much cooler. I was like, okay, he knows what he's doing with the camera.
And in fact, and that's what I say. Like, you don't have to, particularly like Michael Bay, but give credit where credit is due. Like, the man is a master at camera work. There are shots that people try to duplicate from Michael Bay that don't look as good.
Right. And I was going to say, and I think he's very smart when it comes to how it is as a business, because people also give Michael Bay crap for reusing some footage. If you look it up on YouTube, like I think I can't remember if it's Bad Boys 2 in the Island or if it's the Island and Transformers.
It's the Island and Dark of the Moon, the freeway.
Dark of the Moon. Yeah. Where and I know there was there's like a shot of like aircraft carriers, I think in this movie, that he maybe lifted from Pearl Harbor and added like a little bit of CG to it to make it a little more look a little more modern and stuff. I guess if I was to watch The Island and then Dark of the Moon back to back, maybe it would bother me. But like, it doesn't really bother me that much. And if he knows how to like kind of cut costs a little bit here and there by doing that, I feel like, that's pretty smart on him. That's why studios keep hiring him.
Yeah.
He knows how to make his movies for this much money, and then they make money. So
yeah. That's another reason why Warner Brothers loved working with Christopher Nolan, because he would always make the deadline and be under budget.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, we gonna keep you around forever, man.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you can make your movie under budget and on time, I feel like you're golden.
I've never ever heard of a Christopher Nolan movie being delayed. Ever.
Right. No. At least not because of him. Like Tenet, the release of Tenet was a little bit delayed by the COVID, but not because of him. Yeah, that's for sure. And then you hear about all these, other directors who, we need $50 more million or whatever because of whatever, Yeah. I want to talk about the music real quick. The score is one of my favorite scores, maybe not ever, but I love the score for this film. I think the music is so good. I used to listen to it at the gym. Just get like, it would just pump me up. And even the soundtrack is I actually really like the soundtrack. I'm not a huge Linkin Park fan, but the Linkin Park song in this movie, I think, is really good. That Smashing Pumpkins song is really good. The Used song when it's, Bumblebee's being chased by Barricade, which has one of my favorite shots in the movie, by the way. Talk about camera work. When Bumblebee turns around and then Barricades spins around after him, the camera, you can almost kind of tell the camera guy wasn't expecting it, because the camera starts to move right, and then he sees like the spinning tire and he's like, oh yeah, focus on that. On Barricade. Like I remember seeing that shot in the theater and being like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I love that shot. I still love that shot. But yeah, I think the soundtrack for the movie is really good. The Goo Goo Dolls song is good too. I like. And the score is awesome. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I don't like it quite as much as you, but I do very much enjoy the score. It had to grow on me. I didn't start like listening to the score until like maybe a couple of years ago. I was like, this is actually pretty good. Yeah. Especially the Autobots theme. That's the best part of the score for me.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do think that the Transformers movies have really good soundtracks throughout the franchise. At least the first three. But yeah, I think that the hard rock and like the new metal type sound fits very well for the Transformers aesthetic. Because when we did Transformers 86, there was a lot of like
Some of the music didn't quite match and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't quite match. It matched the aesthetic. It didn't match what was going on in the scene. Had you moved some of those songs over to a different scene,
it would have been
because I like the soundtrack on its own. Like I love it.
Yes.
But like when the Decepticons are attacking the Autobot city and then you hear Journey playing in the background, it's like
right. You're like, what? Are we happy that the Autobots are getting killed?
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, and I agree about what you said about the first three movies. The soundtracks are really good, and the scores for each films, I almost feel like gets better and better too. Because the score for Dark of the Moon, I still listen to. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And as much as they actually never released a full soundtrack, at least not that I know of. Age of Extinction only released a 4-track score. It's like only 20 minutes long. It's like an EP, but those 4 songs are awesome. So the score for each film, I think, is amazing. Steve Jablonsky is the composer. I think he was a student of Hans Zimmer, or at least worked with Hans Zimmer for a while. Was kind of like on his team before branching off like on his own.
Protege.
Yeah, protege. Thank you. That's a good word. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's true. And yeah, he also did the music for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, and I love the music in that movie too. So I'm a Steve Jablonsky fan, I think.
I don't remember the music for Out of the... I try to forget Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows.
Well, the music's good.
A terrible film.
I'm looking forward to talking about that because
I don't enjoy saying that about movies, but that movie's not good, man.
Fair enough. I just saw it happen on screen, so I want to at least mention this, even though it really doesn't. It's not much to talk about, but I saw this movie before moving to California, and now watching it again, having lived in California for a while, I recognize some, like the Griffith Observatory, which is where Sam and Michaela go to when they first see the Autobots coming to Earth. Yeah, and then that's I noticed that too. The last time the couple days ago when I watched this movie,
having seen La La Land and how LA was so influential in that movie. Yeah. Now I kind of like recognize certain landmarks in LA, even though I've never been there. But I was like, oh, this was shot in LA because I never knew that before. They never named the city. They don't really show a whole lot of landmarks in the movie except for that particular Griffith
Observatory. Yeah. And one of the Autobots lands in Dodger Stadium, which I was cool to see, but at the same time made me sad because I used to work at Dodger Stadium. It's the 3rd oldest ballpark in the nation. Oh, and to see something hit it like that and destroy part of it almost hurt me. But yeah, I thought about that too. Even before they got to Griffith Observatory, you see the California license plates, but you don't know where in California it is. Yeah. But like when they're being chased by Barricade and stuff, I was like that, just like the mountains in the background, and it just looked very similar to kind of where I used to live and the valley, they call it the San Fernando Valley. I was like, I think this was in LA, which makes sense. They shoot a lot of stuff in LA, but yeah, once they went to the Griffith Observatory, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And then the Autobots are hanging out on the observatory when they're talking about like what to do after Bumblebee gets captured and stuff. So it was kind of cool seeing those landmarks and stuff. It's fun.
Megatron. What did you think of Megatron?
So I really like Megatron in this movie. I think Hugo Weaving does a good job. Some of his, it kind of made me laugh. Again, I don't know if you can blame Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman or if it was a Michael Bay thing, but like it just cracks me up that he's been frozen for, I don't know, it wasn't like 70 years or something at this point. And the first thing he says when he wakes up, he goes, "I am Megatron." Like just announces who he is, not like, "Where am I? What happened?" It's just, and I was like, all right. I know he doesn't look anything like he looked in the cartoon, but I thought he looked pretty cool.
I think that they got like as far as his look, like the shape of his head is reminiscent of the OG. Because if I had never if I had never seen this before and you had just showed me Megatron for the first time, I would assume that's Megatron,
right?
Just by the shape of his head, and like I guess his body as well. So I thought they did a pretty good job making him reminiscent of 86 while also doing their own thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think what do you think about Hugo Weaving's performance too?
I thought he was great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved this.
I wouldn't have been able to guess that was Hugo Weaving, and he might have some effects on his voice too, but like he does a great job. Has
effects on his voice. Yeah, I've always loved his rendition of Megatron. I may not have always loved the way they have written Megatron,
right?
Especially in the sequels. But I love in this movie they really make him feel like a threat. Like he's almost like kind of like the boogeyman. Like Megatron is coming.
Right. Like, yeah.
When he finally shows up, it does pay off.
I agree.
I really enjoy that third act.
The third act is so when it's basically full on, Autobots versus Decepticons in the street and all that stuff. It's so good. One of my absolute, again, favorite shots is seeing Starscream like kind of jump into the air, backflip, transform into the jet. And
he's like transforming off midair. Like, that was awesome.
So good. I remember the movie getting a little bit of backlash for the shot of when Optimus is kind of hanging on Megatron, and it's that slow motion shot of Megatron flying into the building.
Yeah.
I think this was 6 years after 9/11, but people thought it was a little too 9/11-ish to include in the movie. I don't remember having that feeling when I saw it in the theater.
Until you just said something.
Exactly. I don't remember feeling that way, but I guess I can understand why people would feel uneasy seeing that scene, but it never hit me that way. The last note I wrote, I do want to talk about John Turturro's character, actually. What do you think about John Turturro's character?
I liked him. I liked him in I like him in all. I was trying to think. There was one movie I didn't like him in, but I think it was Last Night because he was like barely in it and he was useless in it.
I don't even remember him in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him in all these movies. I think that the idea of Sector 7 was very smart to have a covert agency that they were already aware of the Transformers. I thought that was genius. I don't know if a person like John Turturro should be in charge.
Right. Well, I almost kind of felt like that other guy, the other guy that shows up to John Voight, the Secretary of Defense, and he's like, I'm from Sector 7, and John Voight's like, never heard of it. And then they start getting hacked again or something. They get the virus starts shutting down everything, and he's got the mustache, and he's like, I'll wait. I almost kind of felt like, I don't know if he was above John Turturro or not.
I think he is above John Turturro. But
so maybe,
I don't. Maybe
he's the head of Sector 7.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see John. I don't see Simmons being being like the leader of anything.
Right. No, I was going to say, like, I don't see the mustache guy whose name I have no idea, but I don't see mustache guy being like okay with how just nuts John Turturro is, Yeah. So I like John Turturro a lot. I think he's an amazing actor. I do think the character is a little silly. He's meant to be comic relief. I do love the part where he talks about Nokia and he's like, Japanese, they know the way of the samurai. And she's like, Nokia's from Finland. I do like that. I like how they at least acknowledge that he's like, just.
Yeah, he doesn't know that.
Right. So that was fun. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think he's good and he's funny. He does at one point talk about, it was a little creepy. He's talking about when they're talking about Megan Fox's juvie record. He's like, criminals are hot, and I'm like, she's a high school girl. Like, calm down.
Yeah, that was creepy.
And so, but otherwise, I thought it was pretty good. I like how they all laugh and he like abruptly is like, so what do you guys know about aliens? And stuff like that. So I think John Turturro does a good job at the part. I think the part is, like I said, I think the character is silly. I don't think he would be in charge of anybody. No. But yeah.
I'm currently at the scene where Bumblebee is lubricating him.
So that was my last note. I wrote, I could have done without seeing Bumblebee peeing on John Turturro, basically.
I gotta admit, when I first saw that in the theater, that got the biggest laugh out of me.
Well, again, like I said, when I was younger, I thought it was hilarious, but now it's something that I don't find quite as funny, I guess. Another actor who I really like in the movie and works really well with the like energy of the movie is Anthony Anderson. He's got that loud, big, chaotic energy. Yeah. And it works really well in a lot of these scenes.
Get off my grandmother's carpet. She don't like nobody on the carpet, especially the police.
Right. I like that. And then there's another one at the end, like when he's trying to like send the Morse code over the computer or whatever through the AM radio or whatever it is. I forget what it is, but he's yelling at other people. And it's just, I was like, his energy matches the kind of chaotic editing of, that Michael Bay likes. So I was thinking like, if you had an actor who wasn't as big as Anthony Anderson was in these scenes, it wouldn't work as well. Yeah. And so I actually think he does a good job in it. Well, I guess that's all I've got in terms of story and all that stuff. So Stu, I'd love to hear what you would rate this film. What would you give Transformers?
It's a fun movie through and through. It's got some editing problems. The story is pretty straightforward, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just as far as the story, they don't really do anything that is groundbreaking. Right. But at the end of the day, it gets the job done, and I very much enjoyed myself. So I'm going to give it a very, very strong 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page. I had looked up what I'd given it on Letterboxd, and obviously I had not watched it recently when I rated it on Letterboxd, and I had given it 4 stars. But after watching it this time, still really enjoy the film. Still could probably turn it on pretty much any time and kind of just enjoy watching it. Yeah. But knowing that it has its flaws and, and whatnot. And like you said, and one of the things I meant to chime in with this when you were talking about Sector 7. I really kind of also like movies that have that like secret government type of stuff that happen, Megatron being hidden in the Hoover Dam, I think is just amazing. And the idea of this Sector 7 that even the Secretary of Defense doesn't know about and stuff like that, I think is so cool.
That's like Independence Day. The president didn't know about Area 51.
Right. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So I always kind of like stuff like that. So no, but I think I agree with you. I think this is a solid 3.5 Allspark film. So yeah. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Transformers. Do you hate it just like my old coworker did, or do you actually think it's the greatest movie ever? We'd love to know. You can always leave a comment at cinemaheroes.com, or you can reach out to us on Instagram or Twitter. Both handles are at cinemaheroes. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, of course, leave a comment down below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.